is your take on the age of the earth and things pertaining to that?
Okay, now this is another one of those naughty questions. Now I'm going to say something theological. I'm not going into science here. You know, the God of the Bible is both transcendent and imminent. Do you understand these two words, transcendent and imminent? Transcendent is that God is outside of creation, dealing with creation. Imminent is God is also moving in creation. A good psalm which talks about imminence is Psalm 104. Now your Psalm 103 is heavily highlighted, right? Psalm 104 your pen has not touched. But that is also equally the word of God. Let me read a few verses. It will tell you why I am bringing the ideas of transcendence and imminence when we deal with questions about the days of creation. I'm going to read a few verses at random and then tell you what we can understand as imminence. Verse 10. He makes springs pour water into the ravines. He, God, it flows between the mountains. They give water to all the beasts of the field. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. The birds of the air nest by the waters. Verse 13, he waters the mountains from his upper chambers. The earth is satisfied by the fruit of his work. He makes grass grow for the cattle and plants for man to cultivate, bringing forth food from the earth, wine that gladdens the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread that sustains his heart. Now, if you take this particular paragraph, it all says God does it. But we can say that our hydrodynamics, our botany, our zoology can also explain these things. What does it mean? It means God is working through the laws of nature in order to bring about these realities. That is what we call immanence. So God is both transcendent and immanent. And there is a huge philosophical point behind it. It is actually related to the doctrine of the Trinity. I'm going to say it in just 2 sentences but I will have no time to expand upon it. You see, when you take the being of God, there is both oneness and diversity. I've already mentioned that. For God to create the world, Genesis 1:1, that is being outside the world, there has to be a distinction even within God. And that is possible only in the Trinity. That there is a distinction between the Father and the Son through the Spirit. And so God can create something external to himself, which is real. But at the same time, God is one divine being. The Father and the Son are one God through the Spirit. Now that is the oneness of God, is what translates as immanence in creation. Let me frankly tell you, only Indians can speak more confidently on this than any other people on this planet. Because in India, Shankaracharya talked about oneness. That means he said nature is divine because nature and God are one. Madhvacharya is the one who said, no, they are totally different. No immanence, only transcendence. Shankara said, only immanence, no transcendence. Ramanujacharya was the only one who tried to bring both transcendence and immanence together in Visishtadvaita. Those of us who follow Indian philosophy, we would know that in the Trinity, we are bringing the transcendence of God and the immanence of God together. Now let me tell you how it applies to your question. If you emphasized only transcendence of God, then God will create everything in 6 literal days. Not only 6 literal days, he will have to create every dog from a German Shepherd to a poodle, everything he creates separately. Okay? If you emphasized only the immanence of God, you will take the position of theistic evolution. God is working through nature, so he can take millions of years where everything will gradually develop. Now, I find both these positions very difficult to hold. So I have told God, and I am telling you now, that we do not know how transcendence and immanence come together in the first things, in the creation event. Now let me go one step beyond your question. What about the coming of Christ? Pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, amillennial? I don't know. I'm keeping happily keeping an open mind, because again the transcendence, imminence question come. Because if it's only transcendence, everything will be done like that. God will directly deal with it. There is nothing else. If it is only imminence, it is amillennial. There will be no 1,000-year millennium. But if both happen together, I don't know how that will come together. Now, when you come to the second coming of Christ, there is an added factor which was not present in creation. Who's that added factor? Tell me. We, the church. Peter says we must hasten his coming. So you got the problem all the more complicated. So that's where we stand. And Christians, let me frankly tell you, to keep an open mind is a wonderful thing. Because there are things which are not clearly revealed, and if you take a hard position on that, please come to your own conclusion whether God took a long time or a short time. What I would probably tell you is 4 questions. You know, people like Richard Dawkins, atheistic evolutionists, they say that Christians are create God of the gaps. And he's partly correct. Before science began to expand, what Christians used to do, God did it. And as our knowledge expanded, the gaps shrank, and the God inside the gap also began to shrink. So I am suggesting to you, I mean, this is a conclusion to which I have come, that there are 4 gaps which are different from other gaps. You can call them unbridgeable gaps, gaps in kind, because they do not belong to the same kind of a knowledge. My first gap, how does something come out of nothing? Science is never going to be able to explain it. People who talk about the Big Bang and so on, they do not know what caused it. They are now talking about string theory, God particle, boson and all that. But everything immediately assumes who created that? So you have a problem. How does something come out of nothing? Secondly, how does life come from non-life? For those of you who may be students of chemistry, the line that divides organic from inorganic chemistry is a mystery. The same elements which constitute inorganic chemistry, in certain particular bondings, become the building blocks of life. How do they do that? The third, this is a very important gap. How does reason come from non-reason? In Jawaharlal Nehru University once, where we have our open forum starting at 9:30 at night and going till midnight. It's normally held in a dining space. One student asked me about theory of evolution. I gave this example about the third gap. How does reason come from non-reason? Because if everything is chaos and suddenly we become intelligent beings. I gave this example. If a lightning hits the Bay of Bengal and a laptop is washed ashore, and your evolutionist friend says, you know, this is the lightning caused the laptop. Now my laptop probably could have caused by a lightning, because it is always going into a lightning. But you use a laptop because its hardware was designed and constructed by intelligent people. Its software was written by intelligent people. Reason must come from reason at every stage. C.S. Lewis puts it, it doesn't matter how long back you go. The moment you say reason comes from non-reason, you must say stop, because all thinking gets discredited. Then my fourth gap, how does morality come from non-morality? How do you distinguish by right and wrong? Why I am confident that the God of the Bible fills all these gaps. First of all, He is eternal, whereas nature is finite. So because He exists forever, He can create something out of nothing. Secondly, because He is the living God, He can create life. Thirdly, because He is the Logos. All things were made by the Logos. So reason can come from Logos. Fourthly, He is a God of holiness. And so when He makes you and me in His image, He makes us capable of moral decisions.